Okay. Well, Chelio says we can't chill, so guess we got to go live. And just in case y'all are reading that improperly, we are not talking to Lauren Southern and Mr. Girl. We're talking to Mr. Girl and then Lauren Southern if she goes live at like excuse me, 6 p.m. PST or whatever, then I think we're going to meet up with her an hour later. Hi, old chat. Wow. Okay. See where we're going with that. Debate like two gripers, and we got people saying Heil in chat. Yeah, yeah. I actually, you know what's interesting is so I think I DM'd Mr. Girl back during his original thing. EM Penner suggested that we get together and actually did a dono so we would talk. And originally I was going to keep my arm's distance, but he is an interesting character, and I'm sure we'll have, you know, we'll be able to get into an interesting conversation almost no matter what because he's an interesting fella. Not an interesting fella. If anything, I'm worried that I don't have enough pep for tonight. Everybody's going to be like, oh, here's this interesting take. And I'm going to be like, yeah, cool. So, like, I'll try to get pumped up for you, chat, but we'll see how it's doing. Hi, Lizzie. Hi, Some Kind of Nature. Hi, Christian. Hi, Chelios. Hi, Huron, even though you're doing my joke. Yeah, sell out. Yeah, I am. Actually, you know what's funny? So I'll share a little bit of insight into selling out. The our sponsor VPN Atlas VPN. I was like, hey, I don't, I want to talk about this and that, and I only want to do advertising at the end. And they're like, well, we don't really negotiate on that front. And if you just do like a standard 60-second to 90-second commercial that you can script on your own within the first 20% of the film, then we'll give you, a decent chunk of change. I'll just tell you. Basically, they'll pay me $15 up to 100K, or no, excuse me, up to 50K views. So $15 per 1,000 viewers. So it's not bad. It's not nothing. And on top of that, it's for a service that some people can actually benefit from. From basically, if I have a lot of people who like my Warhammer TV breakdowns. If you live in I think somebody said they were in Argentina, another person said they were in Iran, Paraguay, Uruguay, whatever. And so if you're actually living in one of those countries and you're not in the imperial core, as a leftist would say it, then you don't have access to Warhammer TV, which is fucking lame. Because us in the imperial core in the Western world, we're pissed that we have Warhammer TV because it's $6 a month, and yeah, some of it's cool, but they're not really being super aggressive in the way that they're rolling out content. So we're all pissed that we're paying $6 a month. Meanwhile, other people have to pay $10 a month in order to spend $6 a month. So yeah. Yeah, Steve, no hating on the sponsorship as long as it doesn't change the content. It's not going to. It just might be like a little bit less profanity. And if somebody was like, hey, you can't do political debates anymore, or you can't do self-help stuff anymore, we just want you to keep it with pop culture, then I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, this isn't going to work. Just because I'm comfortable advertising services that I think could actually benefit my audience doesn't mean I actually want to change what we're doing here. Whether that's, just engaging with interesting and fun media, or doing political debates, or doing self-help stuff, or, talking about violence and politics and depression and anxiety. I always want to talk about that stuff. And if somebody was asking me to not talk about that stuff, then that would be a red flag for me. And then I'm just kind of talking to y'all. He's saying that he needs a minute to get ready, which is fine. Oh, okay. He's ready. So you guys ready for the roller coaster? I am ready. Let's do it. So, exit here.
Hello. Oh.
Do you need to do some split cam? Do you need a second to get on camera?
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Looking handsome. Perfect. Let me get that shifted over. Let me get onto my screen. How you doing, bud?
I'm gonna need a second for some technical issues.
No problem.
Oh, we can't hear you. Okay, there we go.
And I'll just talk to my chat really quick. Cali Game TV, I switched to Twitch chat. Thank you. You'll be one of the 20 people over there compared to the YouTube chat. And happy 22K subs. Thanks, Alex Martinez. Appreciate it. Bum number one. I assume that's correct. Excuse me. Hi, Ocean. How you doing, buddy? And then let me know when you're ready. I'm just going to mute myself so I can just talk to chat real quick, unless you want to hear me talking
Okay.
to chat.
Yeah, let's hear you talk to your chat. I
Okay.
have to figure something out with my audio
Okay, no problem.
real quick. I think I'm too quiet, and yeah, go ahead.
If you want to do it in Discord, you can just turn up your volume in Discord. Right click it and up the volume, I think,
No,
or
no,
the
it's
gain on the OBS.
so my audio interface was like crappy and breaking. And I bought a new one, but I haven't used it on this laptop yet.
Gotcha.
And yeah, it's like a whole.
So GD Ani says Counterpoints is better. This is indisputably true. But she only posts once every 6 months, whereas you fuckers get to see me like 5 times a week. So, who's really better in the end? Then, CIC3111 says, 03, yeah, you should have had 0311. Why does the Marine Corps fight for Joe Biden when he has dementia? Because that's part of our charter is that we respond to the orders of the executive branch as a 911 force. So it doesn't matter if he has dementia or not. We'll do what he says. Then,
is your
you just said, hey, is your, and then your volume dropped off by 90% over the next like second. And now it's gone.
Am I back?
You're back. You're very low.
Okay. How about now? Am I fixing it?
Medium, a little bit better. As a matter of fact, go ahead again.
Okay.
Too
Test.
lower.
Wait, oh, fucking shit.
That's perfect.
Test. Okay, great.
Is your name
intentionally?
As long as you don't yell, yes.
I won't. I'm not going to yell. Well, if I yell, I'll turn it down. Is your name intentionally a reference to Counterpoints?
Yeah. So I figured I'd swim in her algorithmic wake, and
Okay.
yeah, just was like, fuck it. I'm contrarian. I like debating things. Figure people will type in ContraPoints. There's a little bit of name recognition. So even though we're vastly different creators, who gives a shit? Also, my first name is Connor, and that's close enough to counter that it seems like a good fit. So yeah, it wasn't too bad.
ContraPoints?
Yeah. Well, and some people recommended that I change that shit, but that doesn't really make sense to me. So I like my name. I don't like my name that much. Jesus.
I see. Okay. I was just curious. Because a bunch of people have thought I was talking to ContraPoints, and I have to keep saying, no, it's Counterpoints.
Well, hey, you'll get a bunch of clicks, and they'll be like, who the fuck is this motherfucker? And then they'll either stay or they'll click out. Either one. Either way, getting some traffic.
I guess. I don't know if I don't know if that traffic where they leave immediately is so helpful.
I see. That's the thing is curiosity, right? Who's this white motherfucker that thinks he's as good as my dark savior ContraPoints? That's the question people ask. And then on top of that, since like I said, she only puts out content every few months.
ContraPoints is also white.
Yeah, but she has some different attributes than me. I'll put it that way. But the point being that she only puts out content so often. So why not come over to Counterpoints where we're actually doing shit multiple times per week?
I see.
Are you? Quick question because I might have to shut down my Twitch chat. Are you banned?
I'm banned on Twitch. Yes, sorry.
No, it's no problem. I really don't. Honestly, I don't.
I should. I was actually going to warn you about that, and I forgot. But yes, I am banned on Twitch.
It's fine. We're off on Twitch, but honestly, I don't really give a shit if I get banned off of Twitch. So it's fine. Thank you, Sisyphean. Fixed.
My chat is saying that your feelings are valid.
My feelings are valid.
They're referencing your conversation with Destiny.
Yeah. I care about Destiny's feelings. I don't care if he cares that I care about his feelings, but I care about his feelings. I know you care about his feelings.
I do. I do. Okay, I'm ready to talk when you are.
Yeah, bud. So it's completely up to you. I think the impetus for our conversation was you were kind of first splashing back onto the scene. A lot of people were wondering whether or not it was healthy to have you as a part of the scene. There was some initial hesitation based off of your prior content, and then I think that you've been kind of throwing elbows and going on debate scenes and panels and all that kind of stuff. So if there was any of that stuff that you wanted to talk about, or if you wanted to get in, I know everybody asks you probably the same 10 questions over and over again. So if there was
Are
anything
you a
else,
pedophile?
well, I
How
don't even,
Jewish are you?
no, I don't, I'm not too worried about those. But yeah, but if you wanted to relitigate some of that, we could. If you were like, hey, I'm bored of that, this is what I want
Hey,
to talk about,
whatever.
then I
I
don't care.
think whatever you want to talk about. You know, I have taken kind of a break from talking about like
Mm-hmm.
people's reaction to me as I came on to the scene because I felt like it was getting too self-referential
Mm-hmm.
and repetitive. But it's been a while, so I'm up for whatever you want to talk about. I just want to talk to you and get to
So,
know you,
so
and I
how?
have some stuff I want to talk to you about too.
Sure, yeah, you can kind of guide, but I guess the main thing is, if I was to understand the crux of your project, like the effect that you want to have on Twitch and political discourse, it's the fact that you want people to communicate honestly and to stop with like the theatrics and playing to the audience and all that kind of stuff, and more to express what's in their conscience and what's in their mind. And I kind of wanted to ask, one, is that your project? Two, how do you think that project's going?
Um, okay, before we start, are
Mhm.
you looking at your chat? Are we gonna have our chats open, or are we gonna hide them?
No, no, I can hide them. Fuck my chat. I don't give a shit.
Okay, chat. I'll see you later.
Let me open up something so I can look at the camera though. Uh, exit. Wait, can I hide my dock?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna hide my dock. Oh, sorry, chat. I'm gonna boomer this, but fuck it. You just cleared a dockable window. If you'd like to show it again, use the docs menu. Okay, cool. Yeah, no chat. Fuck
Okay.
them. Fuck chat.
So so I wouldn't say that as um my okay. So my goal is I want people to empathize with each other and understand themselves and accept themselves, including the darker sides of themselves. Um, and as part of that, uh, so I think part of what you're maybe referring to is Destiny keeps like having interventions with me where he's like, you should change how you're talking to people. And I'm saying, because they'll respond better. And I'm saying, I want to change how people talk to each other. I want to rail against this like culture in order to change it. And I can't do that without like being somewhat transgressive in my communication style. But it's not just about online spaces or Twitch. It's more just, I think it's just part of my honesty campaign. Um, and it's not just, yeah, I want people to, and I think I've been somewhat successful. I get emails and comments from people saying, I never told my mother how I felt about her. I could never told my wife, or I never told my husband or whoever. And then your content gave me the strength and inspiration to finally say what I was feeling after all these years.
Jesus.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's nice to hear.
I'm sure
And yeah,
that's mixed results, but probably ultimately better.
I think it's just better. I guess this is part of what we're disagreeing about. Um,
Well, can you admit that that's painful, even if it's better?
yeah. Yes, but is it more painful to be closeted or less painful? I mean, like life is painful. Life sucks, and it can suck alone, or it can suck with you, like telling other people what you're actually feeling and thinking. And I just think the second way is a better way to suck.
Yeah. No, I agree. The interesting thing about I guess looking to manufacture disagreement for the sake of blood sports is it's not really my bag, but I still do it. I still look for opportunities for conflict because obviously that's what a lot of people are interested in political or YouTube, Twitch discourse for. But if the goal is to there's two things, or there's two concepts. There's like looking at your shadow, right? Looking into the abyss, looking at the dark part of yourself. And there's I believe it's like a Jungian concept that basically says that like no people who don't look at that thing, they're not actually in control of themselves. They're not masters of themselves. They're just ignoring the part of themselves that are bad. Whereas people who can confront their shadow, basically look at the darkest part of themselves and then reintegrate that into their personality based off of the limits that they find, that is a better way to be and a better way of understanding yourself. The only open question, I guess, is for me, this would be a journey to confront the darkest part of yourselves in order to become the best you possible, not just looking at it for the sake of looking at it.
Yeah, I think I got into this kind of with my interview with this girl who had POCD. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, was this the one where like you think about fucked up shit and you can't control it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was saying like I think it's better if you're just a pedophile than if you have POCD.
God damn. All right,
like
explain that.
Well, like if you're attracted to children.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I think people with POCD have some attraction to children that they can't tolerate.
POCD isn't exclusively that, though, isn't it? Isn't it just the attraction to No,
POCD is the obsessive compulsive fear that you are attracted to children.
Okay.
So you have pedophilic thoughts, or you're afraid you're going to have pedophilic thoughts. You're afraid to go to a playground. You're afraid to have, a family member, child, whatever, sit on your lap because you're afraid that it's going to arouse you, and then you're going to turn into a pedophile. Basically, you're afraid that through your day-to-day experience, it's going to be revealed to you that you're a pedophile, or you're going to watch, cuties too many times, and it's going to turn you into a pedophile or whatever. Basically, just the idea that you're teetering on the abyss of becoming a pedophile. And so for those people, I'm like, look, I think we all have some degree of pedophilic attraction, somewhere between 0 and 100. And if you're saying that it's ruining your life because you can't stop thinking about it, I want to say that you're more than a 1. And I think it's better to just accept however strong those thoughts are, instead of convincing yourself that someone else is like beaming them into your head. So like people call them intrusive thoughts. They say like, I don't know, these thoughts just pop into my head, implying that they popped into your head from somewhere else.
Okay.
So does it make you are you your best self if you're like, hey, I'm 15% pedophile and I feel more, I know that about myself now. I'm not comfortable with it, blah, blah, blah.
Then let's move this, because obviously the instinct is to go into like how do I phrase this? The instinct,
Steven Crowder has GOCD,
which is
gay OCD.
Probably. Where he's so like he's probably not gay, but he's so terrified of being gay that he has to constantly fight the impulses that he might be gay. So he spends like an inordinate amount of time.
I don't know if he's gay, but he's trying to not be gay.
Right, like to the point where he's putting in so much effort that you're kind of like,
yeah. And so I'm just like,
Well, okay, so
let go,
owning there's a part that I want to jump to. Not like jump away from. We can revisit. What then? Okay,
because I think that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's it. You alluded to being your best self, and I'm saying, I guess how I define is your best self is just knowing yourself. That is your best self.
What then?
So that nothing. That's it.
Well, okay.
I think that's that. So people are like, what's the why do you think people should be honest with each other?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I don't think there's anything underneath that. I just think that
there's a logical extension to this idea though, which is actually something that I was thinking, and this is an actual potential disagreement, not a manufactured one. I think that it's okay to know things about yourself, and it's okay to repress those urges. So, for instance, I was in the military, I was in law enforcement. They stoked homicidal impulses that I think are latent in every human person. And sometimes those impulses can be inappropriate, particularly in a civilian context, and can also come out in inappropriate ways that aren't great for a civil society. So while I
Okay, I
know,
want to.
Mhm.
I think you're
Go ahead.
conflating knowing you have an impulse with acting on that impulse.
Well, I don't think we've
So
gotten that far yet. Yeah.
well, I think you just crossed the line, buddy, because I think the army and the police need you to beat, shoot, whatever, restrain people, and are tapping into everyone's natural impulse to want to do those things already, and then removing your inhibitions for doing those things. So like police are very uninhibited with like touching you, grabbing you, and like when if you're not a cop, you watch them do. You're like I would just feel so awkward like pulling somebody out of their car. Like
Do you know what's
like
crazy?
it's
Yeah.
what.
Do you know what's crazy is actually a good chunk of training is reinforcing the inhibitions, reinforcing the mechanisms in order to prevent that kind of violence, because it's only supposed to be done in an appropriate circumstance.
Sure.
Oftentimes with excessive use of forces, controversial stuff, like controversial police apprehensions, controversial police shootings, all that kind of stuff. What I see is a failure in the reinforcement mechanism that was attempted through training, because we're not automata, we're not robots. We don't have a perfect calculation for violence and a perfect calculation for when violence is appropriate, and we get emotionally compromised. And sometimes the robotic portion of training, where you're actually inflicting violence, can get like cross-wired with the emotional impulse. And so they call it like contempt of cop, where nobody has really technically committed a crime, but the cop is acting like they committed a crime and then abusing their authority in order to effect an arrest. That to me would be simultaneously they're stoking the instinct in order to get it
Well,
ready.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't,
but they're also
I
doing the
don't agree with
reinforcement
you.
mechanism. Mm-hmm. Sorry,
I
go ahead.
disagree with you. So
Go
I'm
on.
not saying that somebody with POCD should go out and like start molesting kids,
Right.
right? So knowing
They
that
should just
you
acknowledge that they're
have,
15% pedophile.
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think knowing yourself. So and I think this is a sticking point for a lot of people when they hear me say things like this, because they think that I'm advocating for being a pedophile or advocating for molesting kids. I'm just advocating for admitting that you're a pedophile, not for acting on it, not for
So
you know.
what? So for you is so for being, right? That's an interesting word. Being for a lot of people would be admitting that you have these impulses, but there would be a different definitional conception where like a murderer is not somebody who thinks about homicide. It's somebody who commits homicide. So
Yeah,
would
and a
there be
pedophile is somebody who thinks about being a child, just thinks about molesting children. But a
so you
pedophile,
think by
by definition, is some
mhm,
by
go ahead.
definition, a pedophile is someone who is attracted to children.
Okay. Like sexually though, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
attracted to prepubescent children. That's the psychological definition of pedophile.
Do you think there's any value in having a psychological safeguard as like I think you have asserted in the past through words
Mhm.
like cute or attractive or lady killer in reference to children, that
Yeah,
the pedophile spectrum is broader than people would like to think, and that whether or not somebody is like 15% pedophile or 0.3% pedophile doesn't really matter. Everybody has nefarious impulses within their own brain, and we should be honest about our own nefarious impulses. Do you think there's any value in setting up a cultural block where we're like, we're not touching that because it's such a bad part of our impulsive behavior as human beings that we're just going to block off this part of ourselves?
I don't think there's a value in a block. I do think there's a value in some restraint and privacy around it. I'm
Okay.
not saying that I think every streamer should go around painting a pretty clear picture of their sexuality, from attraction to adults, attraction to same sex, opposite sex, whatever, everything you're into, making it public. How much you want to rape people, how much you want to murder people, how much you want to molest kids. I clearly I have done this to myself, but I'm not advocating. I think this is one value that I like about conservatives. Like, if everybody, or even most people thought like me, it would be horrible. It would be there'd just be no. I think privacy is the pushback, I would say. Where conservatives are like, yeah, okay, fine, be gay, but just do it privately. You don't have to have a parade. You don't have to like put on assless leather chaps and ride a float down Main Street in San Francisco. So I think we need San Francisco. We need that. We need gay people who want to have their assless chaps and run around on the street. And then I think we also need the opposite. We need people like in Florida who are like, oh, we shouldn't talk about gay stuff to kids until they're 9. And I think that tension helps us kind of steer. Like, I just don't think we're all going to reach a consensus. So I think we need, whatever. But
Oh,
for
what a
knowing,
centrist you are.
I am a centrist. But for knowing yourself, I don't see a value in not knowing things about yourself and not admitting them, especially with this. I don't think it protects kids. Like, how many of those priests who ended up molesting kids went into priesthood thinking like, man, I want to touch kids, and this is going to be great. This is going to be amazing. Like, I'm sure that they just fell into doing it. They probably rationalized it at first, and then realized what they were doing, and then kept doing it, and then by the time you've molested 50 kids, you don't even know how you got it from A to B. That's my assumption. Or how I imagine it. I don't know if that's what it's really like, but I could see it being like that. And I think if you knew you were attracted to kids, and you had a therapist telling you, do not work with altar boys, then I think the best thing for child welfare is if we acknowledge these things to ourselves.
So if I'm understanding you from a prescriptive sense, and feel free to correct me, this is a individual effort where self-knowledge is extremely important, and don't deny what you are to yourself. Understand what's in your brain, how you function, all that kind of stuff, and to the degrees to which things affect you one way or the other, and your impulses. But from an exterior societal lens, you basically fall under the social mores, some of the social mores that we have right now, using using the shield of privacy to basically protect yourself from the judgments of society, and then act within what we deem as morally correct in our current society, but there's no value in self-denial.
Well, I think we need transgressive people. So I'm not saying that you should follow the social rules. I'm just saying I think it's good that we have some so that we can break, some so that we can follow, some so that we can try to make other people follow. Like, I think that those are all good, like,
let's
forces to be acting on each other.
Yeah, let's cut into the heart of the matter. Oftentimes conservatives, when they hear transgression against like social mores or whatever, the obvious ones that come up that are accepted are transness or homosexuality or something like that. And from a
Yeah.
liberal framework, most people accept the transgressiveness around these identities as a good thing. More people don't have to be in the closet. Less people have to fear violence. Less people have to fear judgment. More people are capable of being employed, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to pedophilia in particular, the reason why I think a lot of people clam up around this conversation and the reason why a lot of people find it difficult to engage is because there's no social utility that we recognize in the modern era to this identity. There's no positives
No,
that we.
I think it's a disorder. I would call it a disorder, not an I don't think. I mean, I guess you can have a like Eugenia Cooney. You can. Is that her name?
I don't know.
That like anorexic YouTuber who's like those pro anorexia
Oh
channels.
God,
That like,
yeah, like NAMBLA, the National American Man Boy Love Association.
well, that's different. So my
Why?
point, no, Nambla. I'd say Nambla is approaching it more like it's an identity or a
Okay,
Nambla thinks pedophilia is a identity or an orientation, just like being gay. I'm saying that I'm saying I think it's a disorder um, that you should seek treatment for.
okay,
But all disorders are an extension of normal human experience. So so if you are fantasizing about killing people all the time, you should go to therapy. If you fantasize about killing people and they cut you off on the highway, that's normal. If you're fantasizing it like you're reaching for your glove compartment and there's a gun in there, then you should probably seek help. But and so um, I just don't think denial gets us anywhere. But I'm not. No, I'm not advocating for pedophilia should be like the new gay. That's not what I'm saying.
okay. The fear.
Do you think that being trans is some kind of disorder?
I yeah, but I do think that it's not controllable, and as a result, there can be. This is my personal theory. I don't expect anybody to subscribe to it,
Okay.
but it's my understanding that through this is actually my theory on homosexuality as well, and I could just be spouting.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh
could just
my
be
God.
spouting some pseudoscience. Well, I understand like historically most cultures have been bisexual throughout time, but I do think that there's a spectrum of
Mm.
attraction to other people, and I do think that we have a lot of endocrinology and genetic mixtures in vitro, and it would make sense because if I understand the in vitro process sufficiently, most people start out with a what would be considered a feminine bombard of cross-sex hormones and genetic development early in the stage of pregnancy, and then later on they start receiving, if they're going to be male, they start receiving the cross-sex male hormones that develop, males basically. So it would make sense to me with the complications of nutrition and endocrinology and genetics and all of that kind of stuff that every now and then switches that are supposed to be flipped aren't going to get flipped, switches that should be flipped aren't going to get flipped, vice versa, whatever. And as a result, we're going to have the diversity of human expression that we see in the modern world, whether that's, homosexuality, bisexuality, transness, anything like that. And so while obviously having body dysmorphia, it could be endocrinological, it could be natural, it could be genetic, it could be a combination of those things, but obviously it's not comfortable. So if you didn't come out the way that you were supposed to be, quote unquote, then I would view the gender dysmorphia as a disorder, and then I would view the steps that you take from there as kind of something to do within consultation with a medical professional and a psychologist.
Are you saying that being gay is a psychological disorder?
Psychological, probably not. Maybe endocrinological
Sexual
or genetic,
disorder? You're saying being gay is a genetic disorder?
potentially. or a combination of endocrinology, genetics, and yeah, for sure. That doesn't mean you're not human or not deserving of dignity and respect or a full, happy, healthy life.
Well, the thing is, okay, if I'm genetically predisposed to liking a certain flavor of ice cream,
Mm-hmm.
like a weird flavor, like avocado.
Gross.
Like
but
I like
yes.
avocado milkshake. I like avocado milkshakes.
God damn. Is that like a real thing? Because that should be your actual cancellation.
I had one once and it was pretty good. So it is a real thing. I had one at some coffee shop and when I was in college.
Okay.
So is that a disorder?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Connor?
No, it's not a disorder. You're
Okay.
consuming
Right. So
a biological plant that has health benefits. You're participating in life
Yeah,
in a way that's healthy.
sure. Okay.
Mhm.
So the implications that being gay is unhealthy. That's what I'm saying. So it's for a disorder. I think something has to be unusual and undesirable.
That's a loaded implication. Do you think a disorder could be unusual and then maybe carry with it risks?
No.
Well, so for instance, like sickle cell, that would be a disorder, but plenty of
It's
people.
undesirable. It's not good to have that. You wouldn't want
I'm
that.
trying to think of a better example. Well, let
A
me.
disorder is something when you find out your newborn child has it, you start crying. Or your teenager has it.
You're loading that word because there's plenty of things that
Yes, that's
that have
the word
disorders.
disorder is loaded. When you tell someone you have a disorder,
Mhm.
that means there's something wrong with you that's not wrong with most people,
Mhm.
and it's bad.
Okay. Do you just want me to bite the bullet on this since you're the person who enjoys honesty and straightforwardness?
If you're saying that the honest thing for you to do would be to bite the bullet, then you want me to feed it to you?
No,
You want me
I
to
got
put
it
it in your mouth?
No, I'll put it in my own
Okay.
mouth. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Sure.
No. Okay. So I
don't want to be too genetically disordered here, but I can put it in your mouth for you if you want.
appreciated. Thank you.
Sure,
So no. Okay. So I doing the I have a black
it's
friend
bad
thing.
to-
Okay.
okay.
I have gay friends. Okay.
You have gay friends
they're-
and you think it's bad to be gay.
I think it's tough to be gay. I think it's hard to be gay.
You think it's undesirable.
I do. Yeah. I think it's hard. I think it's hard.
No, you're not biting the bullet. You said it's a genetic disorder.
Can you let me expand on the idea before
you're not
you cut me
expanding.
off?
No, you're wriggling away.
Nah, don't assume what I'm doing before I do it. Don't assume what I'm doing before I do it.
It's pretty obvious what you're doing.
Well, then let me finish it, and then you can come up with the objection after I'm done finishing and say
I
you need
already-
to own the idea. You're psychic.
I already
You know what the
came
fuck
up
I'm gonna say?
Yes.
Okay. Then
I'm
you
not
tell
psychic.
everybody. You
don't
tell
have to be
everybody.
psychic. You don't have to be psychic to know.
You
what
tell
you're
everybody what
saying.
I'm gonna say. Then tell everybody what I was.
You are going to, as you already have been doing, you're going to try to shunt saying there's something wrong with being gay into an empathic statement of how hard it is to be gay and how and because of homophobic assholes, blah blah blah.
No.
And, okay.
No. It's not where I was going.
Okay, where are you going?
Okay. If I can finish. Where I was going to go is that being gay, particularly from my dealings with, like I have somebody in mind while I'm talking about this. So, being gay was tough because he basically got rejected from fans and family, and I would like the ability to expand on this before you just say you're trying to put it on everybody else. No, I'm not, because there were negative things.
So far, you're doing exactly what I said you're going to do.
Okay,
Continue.
well then give me 60 seconds to fucking do the thing. Okay,
you can have 180 seconds.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So,
Sure.
So basically, through that social rejection, he started interacting with the gay community. He was 15 or 16 at the time. Okay, so he's a young man. And there were some things that were accepted in the gay community that are not accepted in the straight community. He was basically, because of the rejection from his friends and family, this is something that Milo Yiannopoulos talked about. This is something that George Takei talked about, where older gay men will sometimes mentor younger gay men through
with
their
their dicks.
dicks. And so while taking on a pseudo-paternalistic brotherly fraternal role, they will also mix that with sexuality. I think that's entirely undesirable to combine paternalism and sexuality as a thing. Also, because of the confusing nature of this gay culture that I'm not a part of, that I don't understand, it seems like promiscuity. Hold on, I'm almost done. I'm going to bite a bullet. Promiscuity is more accepted. I don't view promiscuity as good in any culture. And it seems like because men have a higher sexual impulse, they seem to be more interested in sex, that promiscuity is more accepted within homosexual male culture. And as a result, there comes with it a certain amount of risky behaviors that this young man engaged in that I do view as disordered behavior, as negative behavior that I wouldn't want my son to participate in. So yeah, I think there's some parts of homosexuality that if it's not the genetics or the hormones or the endocrinology, there's disordered facets of gay culture that I don't like, that I do not think are desirable.
Okay. So you're saying that being gay is undesirable because gay people are slutty, diseased pedophiles.
No.
Okay, but what about couldn't you say, okay, lots of straight people molest kids, right? Do you see what's happening with my cat and my sex doll?
No.
There's a magical bonding back there. Do you see it?
I'm worried about it. Please continue.
Okay. It's the first time they've like met. Okay. There's straight people who molest kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's straight people who have pseudo paternal mentor sexual relationships with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's straight people who are slutty.
Mm-hmm.
There's straight people who get just STIs and who have sex addictions, porn addictions, rip their families apart because they can't stop doing XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like any of the things you're saying, like you could say the same thing about black people. You could be like, yeah, you could be like, I think being black people is really a problem. And then someone's like, well, what's wrong with being black? And you're like, well, there's just so much crime in those neighborhoods. And it's like, well, sure, but that's not necessarily because they're black. And I would argue that it's not. Right. So what about being gay itself is like the problem? Because there are gay people who manage.
But this is an interesting thing about the meta conversation. You were saying, oh, don't couch your objection to being gay in non-specific demographic information. And if you put anything on culture or homophobia, I'm going to view that as a dodge. So did you not fucking pigeonhole me into saying that I do view homosexuality kind of as a disorder, but then when I couched it within culture,
no, you need.
You said that it was a You said that it was a problem and it was a dodge. It's not a dodge. I'm telling you exactly what I'm thinking.
No, I think there's more that you're not telling me.
Dude. Okay, number one, I came into this conversation ready to have the full Max Carson experience and to say what's exactly between my fucking ears, because that's my reputation, by the way. This is my reputation, is to be the most charitable, understanding. And there's plenty of moments in the conversation previously where I could have fucking clammed up and I didn't. And I find it interesting and weird.
I
do find it interesting and weird that out of the two people who are going for, like, you sometimes get upset when people go for what's viewed as a rhetorical own, like you're appealing to the audience over what you believe and therefore you're a bad person, when I could have read some pretty malintent for you and this homosexuality conversation. I'm choosing not to. I'm choosing to continue go down the path with you because I'm
No,
assuming
you're
that you're going to
welcome
extend
to.
me a
You're
certain
welcome.
level of charitability. But I could just as easily accuse you of being like, are you going for an optical own? Are you trying to own me in the marketplace of ideas? Is this a debate now because you're trying to get me to own whether or not homosexuality is a disorder? This is, by the way, I want you to consider this after this conversation too, because sometimes you get
I'll
worried about
consider it right now.
you get worried about the malintentions and manipulations of other people to the audience. And I'm going with you because I'm extending you the charitability and good faith that you're demanding of other people. But just as easily, there were a few times in this conversation where I'm like, is he going for an own? Is he going for an optics win? Is he going for a debate bro thing right now? And I hope the answer is no, because I know that you hate that shit.
No, what is going for an own? I am genuinely disturbed by what you're saying, and
Okay.
I want to argue with you about it because it upsets me,
Okay.
and because I don't agree with you.
Then
Is
can I
that
give
going
you the
for an
exact?
own?
Can I? Well, okay. So what upset?
Well, I
Okay,
want to
actually,
let's define what when own
uh,
is.
okay. So, well, we can. We're all putting.
To me, an own is like when you say something that's not true,
Mhm.
but it seems like it is, or you distance yourself from something. To me, an own would be if I said, "What do you natural impulses to kill people?" You really think that's what being a cop is about? No wonder they say all cops are bastards. You sick fuck. Because my audience, people watching, know that I know what you're talking about. Everybody who's ever played Call of Duty knows that I know what you're talking about. But I can virtue signal to the audience that I'm like, whoa, buddy, like whoa. No, I don't
But
have any urge to kill people.
you
I
would
have no urge to kill. I don't
agree
have.
you would agree that there's a spectrum, a degree to which basically let's just I'll describe it. You can tell me whether or not you agree with it. Every conversation in the Twitch, YouTube, and politics space is a dynamic and clout. Are you capable of having an intelligent and yet aggressive conversation with another creator? And as a result of having those conversations, you will float to the top of the pyramid. The top of the obvious creators who are at the top of this pyramid are Destiny, Vosh, and God help me, Hassan Piker. Not because Hassan Piker is talented, but because he's a fucking beautiful idiot who happened to luck into his position in life. My contention is that within these clout dynamics, every conversation is couched within, should I talk to this person? Do they diminish my social status? Will what I say diminish my social status, or will it up it? That's always happening. So you asked me a question. I answered it honestly because I know that's what you demand of your conversations, or else you get frustrated. But when it comes to whether or not it's a disorder, yeah, I think that there's disordered behavior within the homosexual community that's bad. Okay.
I understand, but
Uh-huh.
I also think it's homophobic.
Okay.
So
So am I slut
so
shaming?
I would like
Am I slut shaming if I call out the same thing with straight people? And do
think
you
being
view that as a
straight is
negative
disorder?
thing? And if you,
Do
yeah,
you think being straight is a genetic disorder? Like, no, you don't think that. But you're
do
associating
you
it with being
do you
gay.
think do you
I
think
think you're being
promiscuity?
homophobic.
Okay,
It's
fine.
okay with me if you're homophobic. Like,
Okay.
or it's okay. It's okay in a sense that like
Mhm.
I'm you know
Do you think that
I
promiscuity? Do you think that promiscuity in general can be a negative? Do you think
wait.
promiscuity in heterosexual or
We're having like
homosexual
three
communities?
conversations at the same time.
So focus on
And
one.
it's stressing me. Well, I want to focus on
Mhm.
you think because I'm calling you homophobic that
Mhm.
I'm doing that to try to get a own, or I'm making some kind of status move or trying to make myself look better than you. I think
Mhm.
that you saying that is you trying to get an own, asshole. Because how many conversations have you seen me be in where I'm perfectly content to be the rapist or the pedophile or it's the homophobic or the
That's why I was shocked.
transphobic person?
Yeah, that's why I was
Well,
shocked.
I'm telling you, I genuinely think what you're saying is homophobic.
Okay.
It's not coming from like a progressive, like I want to cancel you place. I just actually think it's homophobic.
Okay. Then how about I just accept the fact that you think it's homophobic, And I think that I am being honest with you with the descriptive factors surrounding my relationship with some
You
people.
Yeah, you have to be honest. And if
Okay.
you're
I'm being
left,
honest. I'm a little
are you?
okay, so I'm a little homophobic. I'm still friends with homosexual people. I still love plenty of homosexual people, and there's some parts of the homosexual community that I don't
Well,
like.
no. If you think that being gay is a disorder, like I don't think I'm transphobic, because when people call me
Okay.
transphobic, I'm like, no, the things I say about trans people are true. So that's how I'm not
Do you
transphobic.
Okay, so
Just like, just
do
like,
you think being trans is a disorder?
yeah.
Okay. Does that automatically make you transphobic?
No, wait. I don't think. Okay, I think.
Having body dysmorphia, do you think that's a disorder?
Yeah, so some people just like want to live as the other sex,
Sure.
and like I don't think that's really a disorder. I think if you're pushed to do that because you hate your body,
Hmm.
then I would start calling it a disorder. If it's coming from a place of escaping yourself or escaping your body or escaping the pain of how people treat you.
Hmm.
But like I don't think cross-dressing or transitioning trans euphoria or gender euphoria rather than gender dysphoria or
Hmm.
like being non-binary, those people I think are more just transgressive or breaking the mold. And I think there's some overlap where it's in some cases it's a little disordered and it's a little bit, I would just categorize it in different ways. But
Hmm.
I would say, yeah, there seems to be a compulsive, an obsessive compulsive drive to endlessly medically alter oneself in order to change how you feel about yourself or how other people perceive you. I think that seems disordered to me. Yeah.
Okay. If there was a component, not saying the whole thing, just a component
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
rooted in biology or endocrinology, and you were asked to categorize whether or not the entirety of transness was disordered or non-disordered, what would your answer
Yeah.
be?
I would say, um,
That you need to break it down into the smaller components in order to not be transphobic? Okay, then I would like you to extend me that charity. I'm not saying that all homosexual people are disordered or that homosexuality is specifically a disordered category that can't be rectified within society and there can't be happy, healthy, strong gay people. I am saying that there are modern, current aspects of homosexual culture that I would view negatively, regardless of who was participating in it. I don't know if it's cultural. I don't know if it's endocrinological. I don't know if it's genetic. I just think it's negative. And I think that it should be called out and criticized, and it should be tempered with social adjustment, cultural adjustment. If that's homophobic, then
um,
I'll own that.
I think what's homophobic about it is that the
Mm.
things you are calling out are not super unique to gay people.
Okay.
I think
Then.
I think no, I think
Mhm.
the hesitation to criticize those things on the left is hesitant to criticize minority groups, even
Mhm.
when they're doing something bad. So I can understand wanting to kind of slam against that and be like, you know, it's not okay for anybody to have sex with a 13-year-old. So why are you turning a blind eye when gay people do it? That's not right. But linking that to endocrinological and
My friend was
oh
16.
wait a second.
You'll get it.
Endocrinolog endocrinological endocrinol endocrinology
Mhm.
endocrinological.
Dude, you got it like 5 times already.
Is that it? Endocrinological?
Yes, endocrine o logical. You got it.
But where's the accent? Endocrinological?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Endocrinological. Okay, let me start over. I think once you start associating that with endocrinological, problems in vitro, then it starts to sound more homophobic. And yeah, you start telling people their behaviors because of their genetics. There's something sick, and you have a sickness. There was an imbalance when you're in vitro, and now it's making you do these terrible things to yourself. I just want to help you. It does sound homophobic to me.
Okay, then cool. And what I would say is that to me, these are the kinds of conversations that I get super frustrated with
Okay.
political pundits, because what pundits want to do is they want to divide these problems, right? If we were talking about the problems of pedophilia or child abuse or promiscuity or whatever, they want to divide this up into a political binary and say, look, my opponent doesn't believe in my perspective, therefore they're a bad person, and you should reject everything they believe, but you should listen to everything I have to say. Please send me money. Here is my Patreon. That is what alternative media pundits do.
Okay.
I don't give
I'm
a
not doing
fuck.
that.
No, you're not. I don't give a fuck if it's endocrinological, cultural, environmental, genetic, whatever. What I care about is that there's a problem and there's probably an ideal solution. And if we wanted to as a society, we could find an ideal solution and then go after that ideal solution. So that for me is where the more interesting conversation could be. But frankly, I've had like a total of 2 of those conversations on Twitch since I've gotten on this platform. So, or YouTube or whatever. So for
Yeah.
instance, do you give a shit if pedophiles are pedophiles because of environmental, genetic, or in vitro circumstance? Do you care, or do you care more about reducing the amount of kids that are abused in the world? Which one do you care about more about? Which specific factor goes into pedophilia, or reducing the harm overall through a common sense prescription based off of the current available information?
I think it's a combination, but I think I think there's 3 factors
Mm-hmm.
in your sexual proclivities. There's genetics, there's environment,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's choice. So, and I guess choice is some combination of the two. But it's choice is a conscious assessment of your environment, and then a decision made after that, where like I'm attracted enough to men that I could probably be gay if I wanted to. And I know I've hooked up with men, and I like gay porn. I like gay porn a lot. But that's it. No. I as being gay is more acceptable, then more people are likely to just say, hey, I feel like being gay. I could survive being straight, but I feel like being gay. And then in places where being gay is not acceptable, I think you're going to have a lot more people who are like, well, if I could go either way, I'm going to go straight. And then so if you tell me there's a gay person in like Iran, then I'm like, okay, that person's probably more likely, it's more likely genetics and environment are really pushing them towards wanting to be gay, and choice is probably taking a back seat there.
Yeah.
I think with pedophilia, I'm going to assume it's the similar thing, where I think most pedophiles probably wish they weren't pedophiles. And I think most people who have any pedophilic attraction whatsoever, which I would classify as everybody, they don't want to have it. I think there's some.
Yeah. Can I point out something rhetorically that probably makes conservatives uncomfortable with this conversation? Is if I know this isn't your goal and it's not your stated goal or anything, but when somebody says everybody has some level of pedophilic attraction, even if you believe that to be true,
I know it.
Okay, cool. The door for that is felt to be opened into what you would view as more honest discourse. But then once that more honest discourse opens up, what does the prescriptive legal and moral judgments around pedophilia become? And that's why.
The same as murder.
Okay.
The same exact thing as when you say everybody has some urge to smash somebody else's head in with a nightstick.
Okay. Do you?
Like, yeah,
Okay.
we all want to handcuff poor people to a chain link fence and beat them to death with a nightstick, but we know you're not supposed to do that, you know?
Is that
And so we make that illegal.
okay?
We all want to abuse our power sexually, violently over somebody who is completely and utterly helpless, whether it's a child, a homeless person. It's like American Psycho, like shooting homeless people and putting cats into vending machines. Like we want to torture the innocent for our own pleasure. And so I have the same prescriptive response about pedophilia that I do about murder. It's the same thing. Just because we can freely admit, like, yeah, we want to stomp on people's faces, that doesn't mean we should do it.
Okay.
I don't have a prescriptive.
No, this is interesting. There's a like neuron for me a neuron activation argument where every time that you consider an idea, every time that you think about an idea, every time you practice for an idea and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this is literally what the military does with training for homicide, is you're reinforcing that part of your brain. So through the act of contemplation and the act of consideration, you're actually reinforcing these ideas, basically. So what I would say is maybe an impulse that you don't like is don't wall off that part of your brain. Don't use those neurons. The second you get an impulse from that part of your brain, you shut it down. And
yeah, I don't like that.
Then that's kind of asks a utilitarian question. If we found that by not using these parts of our brain and we let them die essentially through lack of use, is that better than having everybody confront their demons if through confronting their demons they end up opening Pandora's box and there's a higher knowledge, self-knowledge of pedophilia that then gets acted on more? You say that very confidently.
I do. Thought crime is bad, and death is bad, and death of part of your brain is bad, and death of your imagination is bad.
Even if it's a bad part of your brain,
I don't think you have a bad part of your brain.
I very much disagree with this. So if somebody knew, like, I have like a 30%.
I would push the button.
Let me go.
You put it in front of me. You don't have to tell me what it does, and I'll push it.
Okay. So somebody just thinking about rape like 30% of their day, they should just continue to do that because it's a part of their brain.
Yeah. Somebody's thinking about rape for 30% of their day. I'm gonna say, like, yes, in your hypothetical, if that's who they truly are, yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you understand that there's a conservative impulse to say, hey, recognize that shit's evil and fucking cut that shit out of your soul?
Yes. I don't think thinking is evil. That's my problem with a lot of conservatives, that they think that in Christianity, thinking about something is the same as doing it. And in the great United States of fucking America, the First Amendment says thinking about something and talking about something is not the same as doing it.
Okay.
So do you love Jesus or do you love America? And I love America.
I love both.
Well, you got to pick one when it comes to whether thoughts are actions. You have to choose.
No. And this is actually no. This is actually an interesting split in freedom and liberty and the concepts of freedom and liberty. So I think that liberty, the right to do as you choose, is preferable to the alternative where your choices are dictated to you from an external authority. I think that's true, because basically what happens is we found through history that those external authorities tend to be arbitrary. They pretend that they're not, but they ultimately end up being fickle and arbitrary and self-serving. And so that's why we've limited powerful institutions in our societies is through, republicanism. So What you do with that freedom, though, is wildly important. So whether you choose to fantasize about rape 30% of the day or choose to think about your family is material. And chances are the way
What
that
if you what if you're doing both at the same time?
then you're having a MrGirl conversation. So the point being that, you know, this was actually a debate that I felt like somebody was in with you that was very difficult to understand, because I understood what they were saying, but they were saying it really shittily. You understand that, like, thought is not an unconscious external thing from your body. It's actually like neurons firing in your head, right? That, like, thought is material.
I'm an atheist, so of course I understand that.
Okay.
An
So
atheist has to understand it.
so doesn't it stand to reason that the material that you choose to engage with on a day-to-day basis could ultimately affect the material world, particularly if you're reinforcing that and if we know what we know about neuroplasticity?
It could. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that would
But
be the counter argument to your perspective, that people should be able to think about whatever the fuck they want whenever they want to, and they should know themselves, and they should do this and they should
when
do
you
that.
say they shouldn't be able to, what does that mean?
It means that I think there should be a personal enforcement mechanism. Let's say that you were
Well, what do you mean should? It doesn't should implies an external enforcement mechanism.
no, because
Okay,
you can
I
you
don't
can
think
enforce.
people should have sex with 13-year-olds. Meaning,
Mhm.
I think they should be stopped.
Do you think that
I think
somebody who has
somebody
a
with a gun should
5%,
come
do you
stop.
think somebody who has a 5% impulse to have sex with 13-year-olds should just think about that most days?
5% of the day. Yeah, I think they should think about it whenever they want to think. I don't have a prescription
Mm-hmm.
for what other people should think about
Okay,
or not think about.
I do.
I know, but it is un-American.
I don't care.
Well, that's
Because
fine.
I do
That's
think
why I'm
it,
saying that I think that
as
at
a
a
matter of
certain
fact,
point,
I do think it's American. I think it's very American, because what we've said is that it's the state that can't enforce what you think and what you don't think, which only leaves cultural pressure, which means that the
no,
only thing,
we
yes,
don't
fuck
need
yeah,
cultural pressure to try to stop people from thinking about things. I don't think that is very American. I don't.
why is that not
I mean,
American? What about America's history makes you think that's not a thing? What about culture makes you think that it's a vacuum? It's not. It's not even close to a vacuum.
no, I'm not saying it's a vacuum. I'm saying that I think it's a very American thing to know that you might be the tyrant.
Okay.
And I think, like, with George Washington refusing to be king,
Mm-hmm.
he's saying um, the problem with the king is the king itself is the role, not the person. There's no such thing as a good king. You can't be a good king. And I think, to me, that translates to I can say what I think is best, but I can't ever be so sure that I know what is best that I'm now telling other people to shut down parts of their own brains or smush out their thought patterns and their neurons, because I've convinced myself with this neuroplasticity argument that if you think about bad things enough, then bad things will happen. Therefore, it's just totally puritanical, like, from my point of view, this completely blind worldview designed entirely around you wanting to have a rationalization for shutting out your own bad thoughts. And now it's become this prescription for how everybody should live their lives, when it's just as likely, or I think more likely, that if you don't think about bad things, then you make horrible decisions, like in denial. Like, if you don't know about your own attraction to children, what if somebody else around you is displaying obvious signs of attraction to children? And what if there's evidence a buffet of evidence in front of you that some member of your family is sexually abusing some other member of your family. If it's in front of everybody at every single social gathering, but if any one person would take 5 seconds to connect to and empathize with and understand why people abuse children, they'd be able to stop it right then. But because everybody was so concerned with shutting down thinking about bad things, they never saw it. Or
This
what if
is
like
hold on. You're giving me a
the priest?
lot. You give me a
Wait,
lot.
I want to give you more.
Uh,
What if about the person who convinces themselves that they would never ever hit a woman or hit
mhm.
their child or hit a man in a relationship or Amber Heard or whatever, and then all of a sudden they snap. And it's like if you knew you were capable of that, maybe you would have kept yourself out of the situation. Maybe you would have sought therapy before something horrible happened.
There,
So I just
there's.
your assertion that like knowing bad stuff about yourself can makes you into a worse person, or even reveling in thinking about doing things you shouldn't do, or just the idea that our imagination should be restricted and limited to the things that are good to do to other people, I just think is completely insane. And that's, but like maybe you're right. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. But to me, the most American thing is to be like, I'll sing my truth from the rooftops as loud and clear as I can, but not at the exclusion of other people's ideas.
Nah. So number one,
Yeah.
you're setting up a binary. So basically, there is a distinct difference between like a libertine anarchist and a divine right Christian monarchist. There's obviously gradients to authority and thought and all that kind of stuff, and there's also arguments back and forth for what's good and what's bad for individuals and the degrees and this, that, the other. We could litigate every single concept under the earth for what's good and what's bad. And I think that's healthy. I think that's very American. Why is this idea good? Why is this idea bad? Why is this something worth considering? Why is this something not worth considering? That friction and that tension, I think, is very American. But I do reject that these ideas are all equal in value. I also reject that basically like you have to be able to go into these things like so for instance, you were saying your example was if you don't contemplate how much of a potential pedophilic monster you are, then you will miss the warning signs of abuse within your own family. I
You
think
might.
that you can say, hey, I'm whatever spectrum you accept of a monster, but based off of like academic consensus and studies of patterns of abuse, here are the warning signs for abuse that have nothing to do with my self-contemplation of my own monstrosity, and I can recognize that. You were earlier, you were banging on
What if there are
about a
non-academic signs of abuse that you would only understand if you understood yourself? Do you, I mean, I'm saying, do you
mhm.
think that's possible?
Well, it's interesting
There's
that
a
you're
reason
bringing.
Clarice talks to Hannibal when she's trying to catch Buffalo Bill and not just not just a normal psychiatrist, right?
Okay. It's interesting, but then so then this brings up the question. So, do you think that the contemplation of the monster within yourself increases the chance of growing that monster?
I don't know. I'm saying I don't care.
Okay. I'm saying I don't care in the opposite direction.
I know. But
Okay.
the thing I'm saying that's un-American about that is that I think the meaning of the First Amendment is that it's too dangerous to define thoughts as bad or to define speech as bad.
They
And you're
fought
making it sound like
over
if you
thoughts and ideas in speech all the time. They killed the fuck out of each other over thoughts and ideas in speech. What are you talking about?
who
The revolutionary founding fathers, they obviously didn't agree with Christian monarchism, or else they just would have stayed with the system. And there were advocates of Christian monarchism and loyalism that they shot and killed. There were people who were loyal to the throne that they tarred and feathered and beat. Absolutely, there are ideas that they would view as violent. We have not been in a
wait.
post-constitutional pacifist, you know, utopia for the past 300, 400 years.
I'm not saying we're in a utopia. I'm saying that the meaning of the First Amendment is that
Mm-hmm.
we cannot brand thoughts or ideas as bad or evil. That the
We
government can't. The
have
government
and we
can't do
do.
that. And that where in our Constitution does it say certain thoughts and ideas are bad?
Well, give me a second. I'll look it up since you're asking. So, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Okay. I think that says that the government can't interfere with people's ability to express themselves or have the thoughts that they want to have. I don't see any kind of prohibition in calling an idea dog shit or fighting against it culturally.
Well, if the government believes something is evil,
like communism,
then don't know. The United States government doesn't believe that communism is evil. People in it believe it's evil, but the document itself doesn't believe communism is evil. The document provides all the tools we need to turn into a communist country if that's what the people want.
okay.
The idea behind that being, this is what we think is right now, but we could be wrong. And it's up to the people to decide what is right.
Okay. Do
So-
you agree with my right to say that I think that the decommodification of basic human need at this point in history would be a fucking human disaster, and that workers owning the means of production doesn't solve all the problems that socialists think it does? Do you support my desire to fight people and say that their ideas are dog shit and that they should consider other ideas and work towards better things than wasting their fucking time 8 hours a day on Twitter fucking jerking themselves off?
Yes, I support that, but more importantly, the government supports that. The government supports your right to say that the government itself is evil and wrong.
Okay, but do you
And-
do
and
understand
most
the
governments
absence
don't do
of
that.
Okay, you're right, and I think this is entirely
written- so-
based
so-
of the American
so-
government. But do you
Yeah,
also agree
So written in.
that leaves it for the forces within culture to fight out what's good and what's bad and how to deal with good and bad things?
Yes, but I'm not saying that I think there's no such thing as a bad idea. I'm saying I don't think there's a such thing as an immoral thought. And you're conflating those slightly.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that if you say I think we should turn into a communist country tomorrow, that I do think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's immoral that you're thinking about it, though. I would never say I think you should stop thinking about that, because if you think about it too much, then you might become a communist, and then it's going to happen, and all the bad thoughts in your head are going to come spilling out into the real world. I don't think there's I don't think there's a strict like relationship or an understood relationship between thinking about something. I know some people think that you manifest something if you think about it enough, and it's pretty obvious looking around my life at most people in it that that's not fucking true. And it's there's people saying that if you think about something, it's just you thinking about it. It has no effect on your actions, and it's pretty obvious that that's not true either. I just don't think that we know, and I think I just think it's too complicated. So I guess the reason I'm saying it's un-American is that if we knew that there was a thought that was bad to have, that hurt other people if you have it, that made like the country or the world worse, I think that we'd be more likely to make it illegal to think or talk about if we could.
Pedophilia in and of itself, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not illegal to think about. I think you can even do. I don't know if you can do cartoon porn of underage people.
I think you can, according to who was I just talking to about this? Dr. David Lay. He said that you can.
You can do that. Okay, but I'm perfectly comfortable with the cultural pressure saying, fuck that, don't do that, and if you do that, then we're going to socially ostracize you. Like I'm okay with that. I'm okay with socially rewarding and punishing certain behaviors culturally. And
I don't. Okay, so you think people should be ostracized for looking at cartoon porn?
Yeah, if it's pedophilic cartoon porn, yeah. Also, by the way, I have furries in my community, but I think that shit about furry porn too.
I feel like if you could push a button
Mm-hmm.
to make everybody straight and vanilla and non-pedophilic, you'd push it.
Yeah,
And I think that's like anti-human.
I don't
I
think
think
it
that's like
is.
our core disagreement.
I think so. So, for instance, one of the things you said was pedophilic. Um,
Yeah.
if on balance it was like 100%, you know, straights, no pedophiles, all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I'm gonna press that button.
I
But
know.
I think
But I
that
think that's
within
anti-human.
okay, I still think there's plenty of diversity within other cultural strands like music and language and geography and topography and exploration
Well,
and mathematics and
you can name
culture
all
and
kinds of
language.
other things that are human, but you
Oh.
can't tell me that pedophilia is inhuman.
You're right, but there's questions about things that like I mean rape is obviously human, you know, is it good or
Yeah,
is
I
it
wouldn't
bad?
push a button. Rape the act is bad, but the
Mhm.
impulse, I wouldn't get rid of the thought. No.
The okay, you said something interesting that I want to push back with a little bit of Stoic philosophy as well. So a lot of people, maybe this is a stretch, but I think that your thought pattern is one born of the luxury of our current age. I think that you, as a person, value thought a lot and view your contemplation of these different things as a good thing to explore the deeper parts of humanity and that it's your right to do so. There, for me, I come from brutal places and I like brutal things and brutal people. Basically, Marcus Aurelius, one of his quotes is, if you're having an idea that disturbs you, ask yourself, who does this idea serve and from where does it come? And if the answer is it serves no one and it comes from a bad place, interrupt that thought and spend your mental faculties on something better. And for
Sounds like
me,
you had POCD.
do you not realize how fucking funny you are? That was a solid fucking burn against Marcus Aurelius. You literally just called one of the greatest Western philosophers a fucking POCD hammer. It's fucking solid, okay? That was a solid fucking burn. And there's a bunch of Marcus Aurelius stands in the comments are going to be like, what the fuck? Solid. But I think that within a mortal life, it's worth asking yourselves those questions because there are a shitload of things that we can do in order to improve humanity. And if we're kind of sitting in a circle, just kind of jerking ourselves off about the darkest parts of our brain, there's plenty of other things that we could be doing that actually would be improving humanity instead of being intellectually masturbatory.
Do you have some kind of problem with jerking off?
Not really.
Are you against it?
Not really.
Okay,
I don't think you should spend all of your time doing it.
but sometime.
Yeah.
Because you keep saying it as like you keep denigrating my hobby, and I'm getting offended.
Listen,
Okay,
I think Marcus
yeah,
Aurelius would have said that stop jerking off and start painting Warhammer 40,000. Okay, I think that's what he would have said. All right.
okay. Um, I guess my view, and I do feel like this is like an American view, is that humans are like rambunctious. You know, they're always trying to climb out of the boundary and climb out of the box and say things they're not supposed to say or do things they're not supposed to do. And that's good. That's a good thing. We're always all clamoring to be selfish or destructive or horrible or whatever for our own to gratify ourselves, and that can be channeled into good things. It can be not stopped with boundaries and can lead to bad things. And I think the job of like the government, and then I think also like social um, norms. I guess in my utopia, it's that we are always thinking about raping and killing each other, but we manage that through play, through art, through laws and boundaries, and we reduce the actions and free the thoughts. And the Christian view is that we stomp it out of ourselves internally so that it's either not there or we are just not aware of it, disconnect from it. And that's what makes us moral, is when you can detach from those like darker parts of yourself. And to me, that it just feels like anti-human.
I think there's certain parts of
It
scripture.
sounds like hell to me.
I think there's certain parts of scripture that would agree with you. I think there's certain parts of scripture that wouldn't. And I think that part of Christianity and original sin and Abrahamic faith and all that kind of stuff is knowing that the fucked up parts of you are there, regardless of whether or not you want them or not. Those intrusive thoughts, as you were kind of objecting to earlier, they're a part of you, and they're a part of the human condition, and they're a part of our quote unquote fallen world. I agree with that because I think that we're animals. We have biological limitations. The impulse to rape probably comes from the desire to procreate. The impulse to commit homicide or murder or kill probably comes from a hunger and violence impulse necessary to defend yourself and survive in the wild. So these things are animalistic instincts that have saved us in the past and probably feel like the deepest part of ourselves. And as somebody who's been beaten and starved and in dire straits that were survival related, I'll tell you that most human beings are about 3 or 4 meals away from being fucking animals. So the veneer of civilization is from complex systems that we barely understand, like logistics, republicanism, legal statute, all that kind of stuff. And these are all social constructions that allow us to harness and temper our animal natures and only bring out our animal natures when they're required. And so I think that you could be right that in a rich society, it's possible to eliminate the actions while still having the thoughts. I think that's possible. But I think that we would be hesitant because you are saying we can just do this. We can do it. No problems. Think whatever the fuck you want to think. No. Believe whatever you want to believe.
I'm not saying we can do. I'm saying I'd rather fail trying to do that than do it your way.
Yeah, but you understand from a conservative mindset that is terrifying and inviting disaster, right? And maybe that's your job. Your job is to be terrifying and transgressive.
From a conservative mindset, it is terrifying to say, let's see what happens if we all know ourselves.
Yeah. Let's see what happens if we throw open Pandora's box on all the most evil shit that's inside our heads. Yeah.
Yes, I understand that is a terrifying idea.
Okay. Then what I would say too is if you're going to...
You think I should be deplatformed?
No.
Do you think it would be better for the world if I were deplatformed?
No.
Even though I have people confronting their mothers?
I think that's good.
Pandora's box.
Don't give a fuck. Better, I try to live my life in truth. My truth. I don't try to hold on to the gods of the old world because they're comfortable. If I believe something, it's because I believe it, not because I'm trying to fucking comfort myself, which sucks because it's fucking terrifying. But no, I think it's valuable. I think it's a life well lived, but I also think that there's a calculus here where not everybody is going to want to travel down the same path that I've traveled. And I'm okay with that, especially if it's a better world if less people travel down the path I've traveled. So I'm okay with that. And if your social role is to be transgressive, to have uncomfortable conversations, to force people to consider what they really think in an open format, ignoring the social pressures of this space, then it's my role to perhaps honestly articulate my cautions and my concerns about what you're doing and the boxes that you're opening. Maybe you're fucking right. Maybe we need to blow these things open. Maybe we need to take a look at it and confront the demons within ourselves. And maybe I'm fucking right that if everybody took your advice, we'd have a lot more fucking monsters out there. We don't know.
One problem with being a conservative is it's much easier to let a bunch of little mice out of a cat out of a bag than it is to put a cat back in a bag.
Fuck yeah.
So
yeah.
I think I have a edge there.
Yeah. And that's why conservatives have been fighting a losing battle forever, is because they're trying to come up with post hoc rationalizations for why institutions exist the way they exist. And the truth is that not all of those justifications make sense over the course of history. So that's fine. And I'm okay with looking at the arc of history and seeing transgressive and conservative people fighting over the future of the world. And I'm okay with the transgressive people winning a decent chunk of the time. But I think that for every...
Not all the time. We need breaks. I agree. We need the conservatives to be the breaks on certain issues.
Not only do you need the breaks, but you probably don't know of the transgressive people who had a bunch of shitty ideas that got stomped out because they got stomped out.
Yeah. We assume that the next thing is always the best thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's one of my issues with the gender discourse or gender narrative now, is the way that
Oh, it's new, so it must be good.
Yeah. And social media has a way of making it seem more popular and normalized than it actually is, and making trans people seem more of a monolith than they actually are, and progressives. And and then conservatives get banned for disagreeing. It's accelerating things past what they can be like. It's removing the checks and balances. Yeah. That conservatism provides. So I appreciate what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and I do think it's good that
you do understand too that it's a risk for anyone, really. I know you know this more than anybody else. But it is a risk just to own what you think, right? So
on social media or in general.
Yeah, on social... Well, I mean, I think in general, but social media as well. So there's I've extended to you a high level of charitability because I've seen your previous conversations and I know it's what you demand. I feel like you've reciprocated that, but at the same time, basically through the conversation and the revelation of my perspective that I think you can make an argument for homosexuality being classified as a disorder, I think that you correctly pointed out that the things that I'm pointing to as disordered behavior are not exclusive to homosexual people, and that's something to contemplate to modify my argument. But at the same time, you understand just owning what I think in a public sphere with hundreds or maybe thousands of people watching and tens of thousands of people potentially watching in the future, and people specifically looking to rip each other apart over tribal political lines. That's a huge social risk to just own what you think.
It's scarier to come out of the closet as being homophobic than it is to be homosexual these days.
Right?
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. Listen,
I
don't know if you're being sarcastic, and I don't care.
I'm actually not being sarcastic. I appreciate it.
This is also where the bar. I think Destiny mentioned this. The bar for being accepting or tolerant was a lot lower 10 or 20 years ago. Do you know what not being homophobic 10 or 20 years ago was? It was having a gay friend and not giving a shit. That was the non-homophobic bar. Now it's having a conversation about the genetic, endocrinological, and environmental influences of homosexuality and whether or not there's positive or negative attributes to homosexuality as a whole, and whether or not you would view it as a demographic factor, whether or not you would view it as a good or a bad thing. That's how far we've come in 10 or 20 years. And yet I feel like the cancellation or the social furor that could be incurred is stronger now than 10 or 20 years ago if you were just a dick to a gay person for no fucking reason. And I think that while
I think just being straight is being homophobic now.
you know what was it? Dennis Prager, known conservative of Prager University, he does think the default state of humanity is bisexuality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know what I think about that. I think I don't like the labels and the way we organize people into orientations. I don't think it makes that much sense. But yeah, I think especially if you're progressive and you're like, no, I'm 100% straight, I think that you will be seen as a homophobe to some degree.
I'm willing, because the bar in these social spaces has shifted so far left compared to, I don't know, normal culture. I'm okay. Like, so for instance, I encourage conservatives and conservative debate bros to just, when somebody calls you racist, go, okay, now what?
Yeah. I think
Right?
that's better than
Yeah.
trying to fight
I'm
it.
a, I'm a, that was a homophobic take. Okay. That was a homophobic take. Now, where do you want to take the discussion? Because
Yeah,
basically
I wasn't trying to make a like to do a mic drop when I said that. I was saying I
fine.
genuinely think what
But
you said was homophobic.
this is my genuine encouragement to anybody who's centrist, right of center, or right wing. When somebody says homophobic or transphobic or racist or whatever or sexist, that's not the end of the conversation. You go,
Right.
okay, that's my perspective. Let's move on to the next part of the conversation where we actually discuss where we go from here. So hopefully,
Can I ask you?
sure, go ahead.
Can I ask you what you think of sex dolls?
Uh, I'm really hoping women and men get their shit together so they don't become as prevalent that we doom our own species.
Do you want to see her?
Sure. She's a little blurry. I
Um,
can't.
Oh, hang on. You see her?
I do.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, I gotta.
Obviously, there's more to her, but I can only show that, for right now.
Right. So, I guess my question is: have you started? What do they call that? Is like where you start assigning human attributes to non-human entities.
Anthropomorphizing.
Yeah. Have you started anthropomorphizing her?
Um. We did before she got here. Me and my girlfriend. I'll say Shaylin acts like there's a corpse in the house at this point. So, yes, but dead. So she thinks of her as a person, but a dead person.
Does that make it better or worse?
For me,
Yeah.
my relationship with the doll, it's kind of funny. Makes it funnier.
How long is the social experiment?
I think I'm pretty much done. I just have to wait. Are you listening to the stream? but there's a delay. Shaylin just walked by. What she's got headphones on. She's listening to the stream.
Yeah.
Um, I'm almost done. I'm almost done filming. I think there's just a couple more things I want to film.
Okay.
But yeah, there's going to be a PG-13 version
Mm-hmm.
and an X-rated version of my
The
review.
whatever people say about you, I don't think they can't say that you're not pushing the envelope. So if you're trying to be transgressive, I think you're achieving it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The
I'm not. You know what? I'm not trying to be transgressive. It's more. I hear a tone.
Sorry, it could be me. I keep moving around because my shoulders are fucking killing me today, but it is what it is.
Okay. If the goal is to not to do something to be transgressive, but to do the thing in like the most honest or like artistic way, and then if that is transgressive, to like allow it to be transgressive. So like with the sex doll review, I don't I as far as I know, most sex doll reviewers are either if they're going to have sex with the doll or be sexual with the doll, then they're probably already porn actors or porn stars or whatever. And then if they're YouTubers, they're probably just like, "Isn't this funny?" And just like staying very safe. I'm like, no, you can't have sex. You can't have a sex doll review without having sex with the sex doll. It doesn't make any sense. And so just trying to and so like it does make me uncomfortable, and it is transgressive, but it's like just following the logical path of like, okay, so if I have to have sex with a doll in the review, like how would I structure the review, or like how am I going to film that? And then like now now that I filmed it, like where can I even put this? You know? It's like just trying to be like hyper logical and ignoring the fact that it's transgressive.
Yeah, I
Like
can appreciate that.
obviously.
You
Well,
made
that's cool.
you made a
Thank you.
point that I kind of bit down on, but I do want to make a point about my ultimate choice. I don't. You asked if I had the ability to press a button and eliminate, pedophilia, but also, maybe transness or homosexuality or other.
Just to make us normal.
Right. Yeah.
To make our insides like ethical.
Yeah. If I would
Your version of ethical.
press that button, if the alternative is the status quo, the answer is yes. But I don't live in that universe, and on top of that, I distrust myself enough with power that I appreciate transgressive voices. The reason why
Because you'd be killing me if you push the button.
I wouldn't be killing you. You'd just be straight, and you probably wouldn't fuck sex dolls.
Then I would be dead.
Well, I mean, I hope that isn't a core part of your personality, but
It is. I wouldn't be me.
Maybe, but I think there's more to people than that. The point, though, that I'm saying is, since I live in the real world, since I live in the world that is, and I have to make peace with my fellow citizens, this, that, the other, there is a right-wing concept called political corporatism where you treat the national body as a single unified body. I'm okay with that. And the way that there's a liver and a pancreas and a lung and a brain, I think that you can think of other people as serving different social functions. And so while it might be my function, because I am a centrist, compared to a lot of conservatives, I'm not conservative at all. It's my social function to find homeostasis within the corporate body, to say what is the left extreme saying and the right extreme saying, and how do we find balance between these two perspectives. That's my job. And I do respect and understand the job of transgressive elements within society, because I think there's a lot of power that come from those transgressive elements. For instance, like if you look at Albert Einstein or Nietzsche or great philosophers or great rulers of our time, or not even of our times, of previous times, they were fucking weirdos in a lot of respects, but they ended up bringing insights to humanity that we value to this day. And so I do value going against heterodoxy, even if it's my heterodoxy. I'm still listening. Are you thinking?
I know. Yeah, you. So you're saying you grudgingly?
I begrudgingly appreciate you.
Okay.
Think you're socially necessary.
Like when the doctors are like, you have some good bacteria in your rectum,
Exactly. You're the
and
good
if you
butt
got rid of all
bacteria.
of that, you would get sick. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good butt
All
bacteria.
right. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
It's up to you. If we do have another subject to discuss, we can. I do have another engagement in about 10 minutes, and I know chat would probably like to speak with me. But if
Oh
you
no.
wanted to
Yeah.
spend our time together, we can do that as well. It's up to you.
Um. The only thing I want to ask is I know you're an ex-cop, right?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk to a police officer, FBI agent, some kind of law enforcement who is involved in like child welfare or like online child sex crimes, stuff like that. How do you think I should find somebody like that?
Um,
Do you think it's possible? Or maybe somebody who used to do it. It's probably simpler, but
email. So, official channels, email the community relations department of the department and say, hey, listen,